Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk, a no-holds-barred forum for leaders and innovators. I am LaWanna Bradford, and you know I love all things business and finance. And the one thing about this show is it is designed to challenge your mindset, to push the envelope when it comes to old ways of doing business. How can we all level up our game and do better and bigger things, especially in today's rapidly changing marketplace? Well, guess what, folks? I have an amazing guest for you today. We're going to dig deep, peel back that onion, and find out about keys to transforming your leadership skills. This individual is none other than Joel D. Smith. Joel D. is a transformative leader. He is a speaker, teacher, innovator, and influencer with over 3 decades of military experience. He retired as a Warrant Officer 5 from the U.S. Army. We thank him so much for his service. And he is a co-founder of J225 Ventures. He has a blend of military processes, strategic insight, along with some old school strategy techniques in order to help us to refine how we look at business today in order to be prepared for the changing world tomorrow. Today is about building future, dynamic, innovative leaders who are agile, flexible, and dynamic. It's all about creating influence in order to affect change, to improve the world, not only for ourselves, but for the next generation. So right now, I will bring Joel D. Smith to the stage. How's it going, Mr. Smith?
It is absolutely wonderful, Ms. LaWanna. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening.
Too busy for you. Never too busy for you.
Well, I want to say congratulations. First, I understand you have a new book out.
I do. It is called The Leadership Advantage. In fact, I have a hard copy of it here right now, and it gives you the leadership advantage. And it is a different style of book when we talk about leadership. So what do I mean by that? I've always felt that someone talking to me like we're in an academic setting tends to get bothersome, whereas I like to have conversations and talk and allow folks to think through and just have a back and forth kind of a session. So this book is written in the style of a fireside chat. We're just sitting around the fireplace, grabbing a couple of beverages and sitting back and talking.
I love that. And, you know, with that approach to your book, it really causes people to want to lean in more. Because like you said, the last thing we want is another volume, right? A textbook. You don't want to feel like you're in college all over again, right? You want something that will pull you in, that you can take and apply now.
Yes.
Well, let's just get into it. Keys to rising as a transformative leader. And I was reading something that you said. You said transformative leaders is about changing how they think. You said it is not just about titles or strategies. It is about mindset.
Absolutely.
Let's break that down a little bit.
To be a truly effective, better yet, to be a truly impactful leader, you're constantly having to evolve. So in leadership, it's always following, leading. I don't care how high up the ladder you are, whether you're in the C-suite or you're down in the trenches, you're following someone or something, and you're learning each and every day. So it's a continuous evolution. And if you're not willing to change your mindset to adapt, to become amenable to change, you're subject to be left behind. Changing that mindset is also about understanding, which most leaders do understand. I can't be the smartest person in the room for everything. If I'm the smartest person in the room, then I need to change the room. I need to get out of this room, go to another room and find me some smart people, because if I have to do everything because I know everything, there's no room for anyone else to grow. So as leaders, the term I like to use, and I'm going to be talking about this in a week or so. I've got to give a talk for my fraternity's anniversary. It's going to be about the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers, where we used to call them in our neighborhoods, those parents, those eyes, those older children that watched out for the younger children, that village that we grew up in. That still applies to business, whether we wish to acknowledge it or not. You're teaching and learning every single day. So to change your mindset, you have to understand, number one, I'm reaching back and pulling somebody else along, just as somebody reached back and pulled me along.
I love that. I love that analogy. Gatekeepers, and you're right. It's you're sandwiched between, right, being advanced while you're helping someone else advance.
Yes.
That's what a good leader does, right? But there's some who feel like, okay, I've arrived, and they tend to have a different style where it's like, I'm going to keep all the knowledge to myself because I have a fear that if I share, exchange, or even build up someone else, that now my role is jeopardized. So I want to toss the ball to you, Joel, and talk about the heart and mindset of a true leader.
One of the best stories I ever heard, and it goes back to, he's no longer with us, but General Colin Powell. I would listen to my mother tell stories about him as he rose up, because mother taught his youngest child, and his wife was one of her room mothers while they were stationed at Fort Campbell. So we go back a ways. But General Powell, when he was the Secretary of State, had a conversation, or had a question presented to him one day. And he said, what makes a good leader? And his response was profound in the fact that he said, a good leader transforms and takes you beyond the science of management. He's able to take you and go beyond. And he used the story of how he was an infantry lieutenant back in his day down at Fort Benning, now Fort Moore. And he said one of his sergeants said to him that he was training, he said, Lieutenant, you know you are a good leader when people will follow you, if only out of curiosity. And that stuck with me. So what are we saying? No matter how tired you are, you can't appear tired, because it permeates and goes down to your people. No matter how hungry you are, you can't appear hungry. No matter how scared you are, you can't appear scared. Let's go around that next corner. We can eat in an hour. There's no fear. We got to take this hill. So when I look at transformative leaders, the impact that they have and the ability to create conditions that allow people to grow is what I see and what I hope to bring to my clients.
What, with that story, which is definitely inspiring, what other experience that you have in your life or career that made you realize that I've learned something, I've grown from it, and now I want to teach and change the world through this vehicle of transformative leadership?
Becoming an instructor pilot in the United States Army. That's the first one that I will utilize, because when I came into the Army, when I came into Army aviation in particular, I'm a long ways from being the first to come into Army aviation. We can go back to the Tuskegee Airmen, we can go back to Bessie Coleman, we can go back to a number of individuals that were flying long before Joel Smith was even in existence. But to become an instructor pilot, when I came in as a young officer, class of 80 something people, 83 people roughly, there was the class, and then there was two others that looked like me. My experience and their experiences were similar but somewhat different. My experience was I was basically told I didn't deserve to be there. I was taking the slot from someone who did not look like me. Had no clue that I was an aerospace major, that I had been flying well before I came into the military. And yes, it was a transition from airplanes to helicopters, but the only thing I wanted was somebody to teach me how to fly. The academics, the oral requirements, I had that handled. So because I was told that I couldn't do it or that I wouldn't be able to do it, it forced me to show somebody that I can do it. I am going to do it. And when I get into that position of teaching, that I am going to encourage learning. And it's all about encouraging that learning. Because I was told categorically to my face that, no, you don't deserve to be here. The first few exams that I took, I made 100 on and was accused of cheating.
Wow.
And had to retake those exams, of which I got 100 on those as well. But they finally come to realize, and I realized at that point what my mother told me long ago, that you are your only limit.
Yes.
Don't let anybody put limits on you. God didn't put any limits on you, so don't you let man put limits on you. So regardless of what you said that I couldn't do, that just motivated me even more to do it. And once I attained it, it motivated me even more to teach and to help others overcome obstacles.
I love that because it's so easy. One of the statements that I use is any excuse will do. We can come up with any excuse as to why. You could have taken the negative words being tossed at you and said, well, yeah, you're right. And, tossed up your hands and said, well, maybe I need to go somewhere else. And I would like you to, for a moment, speak to our young leaders coming up, because this is it's a very challenging time around the world. And no matter who you are, man, woman, gay, straight, marginalized community or not, there are always going to be those obstacles. There's going to be those naysayers, those individuals who are going to come, and or systems or institutions to try to block you from being your best self, right? From rising as the leader you were meant to be. What words of encouragement do you have for these young leaders today?
For them, I would say plain and simple, short and sweet. There is nothing that you cannot achieve if you truly have your heart in it. For me, it was always aviation. From the time I was in second grade, lying in the yard, looking up at the helicopters and airplanes flying overhead, that's all I ever wanted to do. Now, mind you, at that point, I had never met, nor had I ever seen an aviator that looked like me. Didn't know they existed, second grade, didn't know about the Tuskegee Airmen at that point, and some of the other stuff. I learned those a little later in life, but I had no clue. But I knew it was something that I wanted to do. So what I would say to those young folks, if you have a passion, something that is truly a passion that is deep down within you, you have to nurture that. You have to grow that, and you have to seek out those that are going to help you grow. So back to those gatekeepers, that was the mothers, the fathers that were in my neighborhood, military neighborhood, of course, a bunch of retired sergeants majors and master sergeants and sergeant first class. At the same time, a lot of educators, my mother being one of them. So I had a lot of push. Then I also had the ability to look at those that were moving before me, whether they were moving in a negative form or a positive form. You can take lessons from everything that you see. So seeing that, I knew what I didn't want and I knew what I did want. And I was determined, based off of everything that I was given, the drive, the intestinal fortitude, the passion to go get it no matter what anybody told me. That's what I did. I had no other choices. And when I looked at the term gateway, and not to go off track, I looked at the term gateway, and being a young Christian man, I still like to call myself young, even though I'm almost 60, be 60 next year. I'm still a young man. The term gateway in Chronicles is mentioned like 16 times in one chapter, chapter 9. 16 times. That gives you the emphasis on how important it was for those gatekeepers to teach, to protect, to guide, to motivate. So for these young kids, find those gatekeepers. They're the link to the next level. Find your passion and go after it with everything that you have. Don't let anybody tell you you can't.
One of the things you said that I really like, Joel, is you gave the contrast, which you said you knew what you wanted and you were very clear on what you don't want, which enabled you to then make a decision and drive toward that. And so often people vacillate, right? They're not committed either way. And then they wonder, well, why am I spinning? I'm dreaming, I'm spinning, I'm kicking up a lot of dust, but I'm not getting anywhere. And that gets to, you were talking about gatekeepers, and I'm going to switch that a little bit because we are our own gatekeepers when it comes to our ear gates, our eye gates, and our mouth gate, right? Which influence our mindset. We'll be right back and we'll dig into that.
Is your organization losing top talent due to lack of recognition and poor well-being support? Recognition and well-being are the two pillars of employee retention. When employees don't feel valued, their mental and physical health is neglected. They'll look for other opportunities. In the military, we made it a priority to recognize contributions and support mental and physical well-being. It wasn't just about morale, it was about performance. Organizations that fail to recognize their employees and support their well-being are setting themselves up for turnover and disengagement. I've helped organizations build recognition and well-being programs that improve retention, engagement, and productivity. Let's talk about how we can retain your top talent by focusing on recognition and well-being. Schedule a call with me today.
I love that. So let's unpackage that. So you're speaking to that executive who is maybe struggling with employee turnover, maybe employee dissatisfaction. There's just, when we hear about work-life balance and morale, but when it's done right, you see it in action.
Right.
But you said that you tied that to the mental well-being. Mm-hmm. And we also know growth, whatever lane we're in, it is a mindset, right? We have to shift it, sometimes reprogram and get rid of some of those old paradigms. Mm-hmm. That negative self-talk. A person by the name of Burge Smith-Lyon, she calls it that bubble talk, right? Stuff that's just getting in your way. I want you to talk to us a little bit about how you help to transform the mindset of leaders so that they can then in turn transform their employees.
The very first thing I always talk to leaders about, or I have conversations with them about, is their work-life balance. Are you finding the time to re-energize? Are you finding the time to sit and think? Most of your seniors, I'm not going to say most, I'm going to go out there on a limb. All of your senior leaders that have been out there, impactful senior leaders, whether it was the president, chief of staff, VP, whoever it may be, all of them had to, at some point in time, find time to think, find time to find clarity. Bill Gates is notorious for shutting down for a week or two and just going off somewhere and shutting down all the noise. No phone calls, no computers, no nothing. I'm going to read some books. I'm going to take some time to reflect. Then he comes back energized, and the next hot or new item is out there because he's talking to his team and he's giving them that opportunity to do the same things. What does it do? It forces you to think and to not bring too much of yesterday forward into your today and into your future. When you got so much of yesterday on your mind, you're not present, and you can't look to the future. As strategic leaders, as leaders in general, one of the big things that you do is what? You future cast, as I call it. You future cast. You're looking to the future, whether it's depending on the level that you're working at, whether it's 6 months, a year, 5 years, or your 10-year plan as a strategic leader, you're future casting. If you're spending all of your time on what happened yesterday, you fail to catch up on what's going on today, and your ability to adapt your future plans is greatly affected. Even though you're thinking in the future, you still have to have enough wherewithal to think about, if something happens today, how do I shift? If you're still focused on what happened yesterday, not that yesterday wasn't important, but if yesterday is taking up all of your today, your future will be affected. So getting them to think about some time off, taking care of their well-being, ensuring that they're taking care of their people's well-being, you have to have it.
I like what you said, when you have too much of your past on your mind, right? That's done, right? But so many of us, I mean, in all walks of life, we tend to live in the world of shoulda, coulda, right?
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right. Yeah. If only, and you're always looking back. You're always looking in that rearview mirror, and it creates kind of this push me, pull you effect. But
Absolutely.
if you can learn from whatever that past was, and then translate it into a future more informed present, then you can position yourself for better decisions for that future impact. Do you agree?
I would agree. If you acknowledge what happened, whether good or bad, acknowledge it. It happened. One of the big things that all leaders and all personnel can do is laugh at yourself. I'm a firm advocate of laughing every day. Cat Williams said it best: laugh every day, no matter how small. Get you 7 good hearty chuckles in every day, because it's going to take a lot of that pressure off of you. If you can't look, okay, I made a mistake, I own up to that mistake, I'm laughing about it with my team. Yeah, your boss messed up today. I most certainly did. Let's laugh about it. Let's fix it. Tomorrow, we're moving forward. It has been acknowledged. It has been accepted. I was authentic and vulnerable enough to share it with my team. Now, let's get to work. Yeah. We don't make this mistake again.
When you said that, I was thinking about, we're going back some decades, but with Coca-Cola, right? Legacy company. And remember when they came up with the new Coke?
Yep.
Right. Some leader, bought it and said, yeah, this is the way we're going to go. Did you see how quickly they pulled that from the shelf?
It lasted a good month or two before.
Yeah.
No.
When you think about that, Joel, that was hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars worth, not only product distribution, salaries, benefits, just marketing.
I know, the whole
right?
thing. It was millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But had they stayed on that path and not acknowledged that this was a mistake, they would have went completely under.
Yes. Exactly.
So they acknowledged it. They got it. Okay, let's fix this. Go back to Formula A and let's move forward.
Yeah. Stick with what works. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because there's leadership. There's a lot of turnover in leadership. Leadership changes. And what do you think about leaders more often than not coming in and disrupting the apple cart, rather than saying, let's evaluate and see what works? Obviously most leaders want to put their signature on it. I get it. There's ego in the equation. But when they just come in and do a wholesale, we're getting rid of this, and we're bringing all this new in without doing a really deep evaluation and appreciation for what was working well.
You said the key thing, doing a deep evaluation. A lot of times, especially as military personnel, military officers, we transition and we moved around a lot. I did 32 years in the Army, and I think I've moved 20 plus times. And I can't stand moving to this day because of that. I'm so sick of moving, I don't know what to do. But the one thing that I learned as a leader is to not come in the door demanding change without having first taking a look at the landscape and see what's working and what's not working. Bringing in those senior folks, those senior managers, those, in my case, senior NCOs, those young officers that had been there for a while, and seeing what's worked. Hey, walk me through these processes. Walk me through your thinking when you're doing these things. The whys, the how comes. Because one thing we all know that is inevitable is turnover.
Okay.
Turnover is going to happen whether you want it to not, whether it is a life or death situation, somebody passed, or somebody's life changed because we have to now move to go take care of parents, go take care of children. Things happen. Life happens. Or as my pastor's wife would say, life be lifing.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And therefore, turnover is going to happen. But what do we do to mitigate turnover? We train, we cross-train, you do all these different things. In the military, hey, you teach the man beneath you your job and you learn the job of the person above you. I was in a establishment a little while ago, and it kind of made me nervous because I was watching and I said, hey, what does your progression program look like, your training program for people to advance? We don't have one. I scratched my ear. So what happens when someone retires, or God forbid somebody's in an accident, or somebody's family and they have to, I don't want to live here, I want to go elsewhere. No, at that point, we just move somebody and we start training them. Okay, how long does it take to train them? 1.5 years. Now, well, I won't call this place, but it was a financial institution. My very next question behind that is, are you FDIC? Because what I'm hearing is you have a huge single point of failure with no feasible backup plan in place from top to bottom. So if you're telling me if a regional vice president has something happen, we'll have somebody fill the slot and we'll train them as you go. For a regional vice president, So succession planning is something that is not permeated in this organization. All organizations need to consider and think about succession planning, just as they do their strategic vision. If you don't have it in place, the Army has our Army song, the Army keeps rolling along, basically saying, if something happened to you, the Army is going to keep rolling along. Well, that can't work in business unless you have set the conditions for someone to fall in if somebody falls out or leaves. If those conditions aren't set, there's a huge gap. And if an emergency takes place during the transition from one to the other in this gap, you're not equipped and you could suffer huge consequences or losses. So as a leader, you have to change your mindset.
That's true. And some people think, like, when we use the term succession planning, it's like, oh, you are picking person A to go here. It's like, no, I'm developing bench strength, right? It doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but at least I know that I'm 3, 4, 5 deep, or I have a program where I'm training in, like you said, the example you gave, perhaps future leaders, because we know that in today's workplace, things are changing so rapidly. And you and I have had conversations about future of work. Well, that's part of a leader's responsibility. If I'm looking at the future, the workforce of tomorrow, do I have the right people with the right skills in order to do the work, not just today's work, but future work?
What am I giving them to train for the future battles?
Mm-hmm.
Businesses, you're on a battlefield, whether you wish to acknowledge it as such or not. You're on a battlefield. You're in competition. You're in competition with your competitors. You're in competition with resources. You're in competition with the government. You're in competition with, it's just a broad spectrum warfare. And if you're not able to adapt, so remote work, I was reading something today where there's the desire with new personnel coming in to return to in office, making remote work a thing of the past and forcing people to come back in the office. And I'm sitting there looking at it. That is a very distinct impossibility because a lot of your workforce doesn't necessarily live in your county, your state, your country. So you're
Right. The
going to
world has
try
changed, right, and how we do business.
you may bring folks back in, but you have now hamstrung them to the degree that they may not be able to completely function because most businesses have gone global.
Yes.
And in that global capacity, coming in is not necessarily the best thing or feasible that is going to happen. Okay.
Let me just jump in right now. And I'm going to turn it back to you. It's actually a little insulting, right? Because the pandemic forced us to do business, find a way to do business. So we did so, and we mastered the virtual and or hybrid environment. And so now to say, okay, we want you all back. That's like basically saying, everybody give up your cars and let's go back to horse and buggy or the railroad.
Exactly. And there's going to be pushback. There's going to be some concerns and issues. I'm not saying that it can't work, but just like you said, a hybrid workforce, whether they're coming into the office 2 or 3 times a week, or you've got this group coming in Monday through Wednesday, this group coming in Wednesday through Friday. There, at some point in time, I need to lay hands on everybody other than virtually. Because the downside of that remote work is the connectivity that you used to have, the contact that you used to have, you kind of lost that. So the hybrid works, but to force everybody back in, yeah, I can see some challenges getting ready to take place. But here again, that's where we go back to changing how leaders think. Are you adaptable? Can you adjust to what's on the horizon? Are you prepared?
Right. And even when you look at, cascading it down. Okay, so I bring everyone back. Now I feel like, I'm a big person in charge now. I can see you and monitor your work. But at what cost to the company? Because,
exactly. Because I can monitor your work while you're sitting on your computer at the house.
Yes.
I can see when you checked in. I can see what you're looking, especially if you have one of our computers. Your job computer. You're doing work because everything is, I won't say top secret, but it is confidential information and a lot of things that we do. So we only want it on our computer. I can see what you're working. I can see how long you've been on your computer. I can tell when you logged in and when you logged out. So yes, I can see you in the office, but just because I see you in the office doesn't mean you're necessarily working. Did we not have that problem before we went to remote work?
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of water cooler conversations that lasted an hour.
Yeah, your 10, 15-minute break just went an hour and a half. Okay, why is it that I just pulled the system and I see that you've been shopping for the last 2 hours online? It does happen.
And it's not that you can't. I'm sorry, you said that. It made me laugh. I was reading a study and they said that they were researching the most Google word when people are working. It was travel. People are planning their next vacation.
When am I getting out of this office? I got to get up out of here. So again, that goes back to work-life balance. How are you investing in your team? What are we doing? Are you in a culture where you're always on? You never shut down because you're at the beck and call. I remember them days of having 3 cell phones, an iPad, and a computer, and used to drive my family crazy because I'd get these texts and calls at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'd have to let them know, look, I've got people on the other side of the planet. It's daytime to them there. And yeah, I'm getting up at 3 in the morning, but it's trying to catch so, you can work with people. It's part of it. But when do you shut down? And it wasn't until my older sister came to me and sat me down. She said, you are wearing yourself out trying to take care of mom and dad. You're working all these crazy hours. You don't sleep. You sleep maybe 3 or 4 hours a night. How are you functioning? Eventually, your body is going to rebel. And short story, that happened to me in combat. Mm. I had been on one of those things where I had been up for about 72 hours and was still going. And my body finally said, okay, if you won't shut it down, go get some sleep, I will force you to shut down and go get some sleep. And it was almost detrimental.
Yeah, that's very, very frightening. And it's even concerning when, we hear the mantra of, oh, we want work-life balance, we care about you, blah, blah, blah. But yet there's this pressure in culture that, no, we expect to be able to reach you kind of round the clock.
And we expect you to get it done.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I haven't given you all the resources you need. Yes, I know that I'm asking you to do a lot. Yes, I know that you were supposed to be off this weekend.
Yeah, but
yeah, I need this done. And I'm not saying you have to come to work, but yeah, you kind of are. You're not saying it out loud, but you're implying that I need you to work this weekend. This is important. It's your baby. Get it done.
Right.
How are we taking
let's
care
give
of
it a break and we're going to come right back.
This is great.
Is stress and burnout quietly destroying the health of your employees? Mental and physical well-being are often overlooked in the workplace, but without proper support, your employees are more likely to suffer from stress, burnout, and even health issues that impact their performance and your company's bottom line. In the military, maintaining mental and physical resilience was critical to our success. We made sure our team was mentally sharp and physically fit to meet the challenges of high-stress environments. The corporate world may not be a battlefield, but it's no less demanding. Your team needs support to stay healthy, focused, and engaged. I can help you implement well-being programs that protect your employees' health and improve their productivity. Let's talk about how we can boost your team's well-being and keep them performing at their best. Contact me today.
Yeah, I just thought when you were going down that lane, I'm like, hold on. We got an intro for this. So let's talk about this. What are some well-being programs that individuals can really consider when it comes to their employees? And so it's two-part. And how do you change that mindset when we do come from a culture of just grind?
The first question that you ask is, what are some things? One of my favorite things is to do a work retreat, to relax. Again, going back to what I said earlier about Bill Gates taking some time to shut down and refocus and re-gauge. Yes, there's few organizations that can totally afford to shut down. They have to leave somebody minding the shop and all the above. But there are more than enough opportunities if you truly look to shut down, bring folks together in a setting that is not just solely about production, work, getting it done. Okay, let's take some time to unwind, to just talk and all the above. Now, let's have us a round table and sit down. What are some good ideas? What are some things that have been going through your mind? Allow your employees to have input, to understand that their input truly matters to you and to this organization. And as they're inputting, you will find that it gets better and better each time you do it. They become more and more engaged. They become more and more dedicated. Okay, you're telling me that you will assist me in going back to school because you see me moving to these positions and you understand that at these positions, I want you to have this education. Because you're a good worker, I'm going to invest in you because I want you to be able to move up into these positions. They see a future. That's going to motivate them to do even more. When they don't see a future, when they don't see an out, when they don't feel appreciated and or seen, that's when burnout comes, and that's typically when turnover comes. And you fool around and you have some of your best employees leaving and looking elsewhere.
Right.
Second part of that, refresh my memory again. What was the second part of your question?
The second part is being able to shift that culture when we've been used to just the grind.
And that is something that was more or less our generation. When we look at the generation that's coming up behind us, the things and the access that they have is completely shifted in the world. When I used to mess with my soldiers all the time, and I said, we talk about contingency plans. Every organization needs a contingency, a what if plan. Okay, we're in the day of Wi-Fi and computers and all the above. Electricity goes out. What's the plan? Same thing I used to tell them on the battlefield. Okay, we didn't get gas for the generator, so you can't crank out this stuff. What's your plan? Do we have the maps available to go ahead and continue the mission? Do you know how to plan the mission without the computer? Do we have carbon paper? And of course, most of them looked at me and said, what the heck is carbon paper?
Right.
Do you have a typewriter? Soldiers still need to get paid. Do we have the ability to cook? Soldiers still need to eat. Soldiers still want their mail. We have to be able to function even in times of adversity. So if your computers go down, if your supply chain is broken, which happened during the pandemic, we had ships sitting off the coast with all kinds of containers because we didn't have anybody to move it because everybody was doing protective measures and whatnot. What is your plan? And a lot of times I find that a lot of industries don't have that type of contingency. So you have to adapt your thinking. It's not something that you want to do right when it happens. You want to have something in place that it may not be picture perfect, but it's adaptable to the situation. I have a contingency plan.
You know, what you said reminded me. I mean, this is recent. Pandemic, that's yesterday. Let's just go to this summer. Remember with that CrowdStrike
Yes.
IT crash issue?
Yes.
Banks, airlines, hospitals, all of that was impacted. I mean, people were running around like, oh my God, is it the end of the world? What's happening? Was it terrorism? No one knew what was going on initially.
And you saw a lot of our generation took it in stride and kept on doing what I got a plan. There's the younger folks that we haven't bothered to be the gatekeepers for, and we haven't taught them that looked around, oh, the world is coming to an end. I can't catch my flight. I still remember some of the guys, and I'm still with United, and I would get these little text messages. Okay, are we shut down? They shut down this airport. Is this shut down? I see Southwest has shut this down. Okay, we don't have any ability to file flight plans. All above. It was complete chaos. Okay, there was a time before computers where we filled out flight plans by hand. There was a time before computers that you pulled out your little handheld whiz wheel, as we call it, and you calculated how fast I was going to be going. You looked at the winds, you adapted all that stuff.
Right.
You continue to perform.
Right.
We've lost that ability.
We have, and the technology is great, and it gives us access, efficiency. I mean, we can do so much more. But what happened this summer that was scary, you're focusing on the airlines and they're showing all the people stranded. But then it's like they didn't talk a lot about what was happening with the hospitals. Electronic health records. I can't access it. And I've always felt somehow we need to have some tandem systems going on. It's, you just don't, we're just in that place where so much can be, in jeopardy, or even looking at natural disasters.
Yes.
And we're just stuck. But we've got just a few more minutes. I want to talk to you about one thing, and then I'm going to allow you to speak to the audience. And I was reading something that you had recently wrote, and you talked about 5 areas, and I'm paraphrasing these. You talked about a leader should have a big picture, being able to vision what that is, have clarity of thought, gaining buy-in, being able to communicate that, right, to bring everyone along.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about having those corporate and personal values, making sure that they're in alignment. Sometimes they may not be, but for the most part, they should. But then you said reflection, and I'm going to call this reflective learning. So let's talk about why, as a leader, it's so important to reflect. Right? We started earlier talking about the past, right? But you said you can't bring it forward into your presence, but we can learn from it, right? So can you kind of walk us through what that process would look like for a leader?
And I talk about this extensively in the book in different locations. And reflection is one of the primary weapon systems of a leader. The problem that most leaders have had is finding the time to reflect. And when I say time to reflect, not just a fleeting moment, yeah, this happened yesterday, how did we handle it? But I'm talking about some serious time to just cancel the noise and reflect. I called it the quiet airspace, the quiet time, where you're up at altitude and everything, the plane is in cruise, weather is good, everything is cooperating, and you're just quiet. That time to clear your mind, to go back through some things. Okay, what would I have done different? What could I have done different? Was my communication clear? That clarity that your people are seeking is the clarity that you give them. If you don't provide them clarity, they're stuck with confusion. And the last thing that you want is a lot of folks playing multiple guess as to what we're doing and where we're going. So you have to have time to reflect, and that allows you to clarify and clear your vision up so that you can provide that clarity. Reflection allows for clarity. Reflection allows for recommitment. When you take that time to reflect on things that happen, how committed to it are you? As a strategic leader, your focus is broad spectrum. You have your middle managers, and then you have your lower tier supervisors and all the above. They're truly focused on the day-to-day and what's happening right now. So you have this broad spectrum picture. Because you have that broad spectrum and you're dependent upon information from others, a lot of times you can find yourself disconnected. So the other part of reflection is getting reconnected, getting to the back. So I like to use the analogy of the wolf pack. And as you saw in my book, when you see me next to a wolf and all the above, there are things that we can learn from animals that a lot of people don't realize. When you look at a wolf pack that is traveling, I'll just say on the move, they're going out. How do they typically move? You always hear about the alpha male and the alpha female that's running the pack. Well, a lot of times as a leader, and what these wolves will do is they'll put the old and the weak up front. Why? To set the pace. The concept of no one left behind, the concept of no man left behind, no business partner left behind. You put them up front so they can set the pace. What do you put directly behind them? Some of your most powerful people, your strongest wolves. Why? Because they can protect to the front. They can also protect what's in the middle, which is your young and weak and vulnerable that are learning. And behind them, you set another group of strong wolves. But who's coming up in the rear? The alpha. What does it signify? Sometimes you have to step back and step to the rear to see what's really going on in your organization, so you know where to put resources, so you know where to develop teams, so you know where to put education and effort. Stepping to the back allows you to attack front, left, right, and to the rear. You have your entire organization covered. Being able to step back and reflect and view the big picture is paramount and key to being an effective leader.
I love that. Lessons from the Wolf Pack. We'll be right back, and you will hear a few key tips from Mr. Joel D. Smith.
So as we close up, I will leave you with just a few things. The first one is the art of following before leading. At some point in time, all of us learned from someone else, whether it was on the playgrounds, the sporting fields, the band rooms, wherever it was, you had to learn. And what did you learn? You learned how to follow. So to be an effective leader, you had to know how to follow first. Gave you a lot of lessons. Sometimes you found lessons about how you didn't want to lead, and you found a lot of lessons that you did and how you wanted to lead. And a lot of days they would call it plagiarism, but plagiarism is okay in this place. You take something, you found it, you adapt it, and you mold it, and you make it your own. The second thing is you never stop learning. Leading is about continuously learning. It's about also continuously teaching and providing learning opportunities to your personnel and your people. The day you stop learning is the day that you need to retire, because you've just effectively become dangerous. Next, riding those waves of adversity. Contrary to popular belief, there will be times of adversity. How you react to adversity is going to be a telltale sign of what kind of leader you are and whether you are the leader of the future and can transform and be impactful. Create a team. Create your teams. Make them teams. How do we do that? You create teams by building and basing things off of nurturing togetherness, learning, input. Everybody's input matters. The next thing I would have is celebrate those milestones. When something is accomplished and somebody does a great job or a good job or whatever the case may be, celebrate it. Let your people know that they are appreciated. Let them know they are valued and how much you value their input to your organization. Active listening would be next. 75% of what we learn typically comes through our eyes, which in turn affects what we hear. Listen to understand. Listen to hear. Don't listen to respond. Understand that there's a difference. So practice that active listening. Be engaged. Look your personnel and your people in the eyes when they're talking. Try to get into their psyche and understand what they're saying. Hear what they're saying. Whether you agree or disagree is not the point. It's the point that you actually took the time out to listen. Mentoring. Succession planning is not just something that happens overnight. It comes with mentoring. At some point in time, most of us were mentored, so therefore we should be mentoring. In and outside of your organization, in our communities, is equally as important. So Having said all of that, I want to thank LaWanna and the Bradford Group for having me on. This has been an absolute blast. I hope you have me back sometime in the future. And everyone, this transformative leadership that I'm talking about is all about changing how you think, changing your mindset. It's not that you don't think, but we want it to continue to change and evolve.
Yes, I love this. This has been fantastic. I learned something about lessons from the wolf pack, along with some other things. I just encourage you all to follow Joel. I have been showing his information below. I'm going to show it again for you. You can contact him at thejoelsmith.com or J225ventures at j225ventures.com. And yes, definitely, Joel, we will have to have you back. And also tell people how they can get your book.
You can get my book. It is out on Amazon. It is out in hard copy and paperback. It's on Amazon. Just put it in the link. Look for The Leadership Advantage. And
The Leadership Advantage.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I told you this was going to be a good one. And you can follow us on e360tv.com. If you missed it, you could always go and catch it on demand. And we just want you to remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next week, be safe, be well. Bye, Joel.
Bye-bye.